Hello everyone. It is Tuesday, June 2nd. Tonight we are talking about good carbs, and good fats, bad fats. All right, I'm Tammi from the WRAC. I'm a registered dietitian, also a personal trainer and group instructor. Hi Lynn. Anyway, tonight we're going to talk about carbs and fat. First of all, I just want to let you know, as a dietitian, we don't really label foods good or bad. Several reasons for that, but we don't want to associate yourself feeling good if you, we want you to associate yourself feeling good if you're eating good, but if you eat something bad, you're not a bad person. So we kind of take those words away from good versus bad. There's better choices, so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So first of all, let's start with good carbs versus bad carbs. And again, not really good, bad, but some carbs are a lot better for you than others. And the difference is carbs that are more whole grain, fruits and vegetables, they're less processed, they have more fiber. So one thing about carbohydrates is we need carbohydrates. We need carbohydrates to function. It's our body's primary fuel source. The amount that you need is going to depend on how active you are, whether you're male or female. There's a lot that come into play with that. Some people don't do as well on a lot of carbs, but we certainly need a certain amount of carbohydrates for basically brain and red blood cell fuel, all right? So let's focus in on what that means with good carbs, or better choice, healthier carbs. Again, they're a lot, or most of them are plant-based, or they all are plant-based, I should say, and they can be fruits or vegetables, whole grains, beans, legumes. Those are all carbohydrate sources, rice, potatoes, pasta, those kinds of things. Now, some of the rice and pasta and some of the things that come in a bag are a little more processed, but that doesn't mean you can't have them. Those are starchier carbs. You can work those into your diet, but we're gonna want to try to get as many whole grain sources. And what I mean by that is that there's still fiber in those choices. So if you look on a label, let's say your bread label, and you want to look at how many grams of fiber is in that bag, or in that amount in a serving. So to look and see how healthy it can be, if it has 3 grams of fiber per 100 calories, that's a pretty good rule of thumb. So that's just one example. So fruits and vegetables, you want to have, if you can have the skin intact, you're going to get more fiber that way. So the more fruits and vegetables, of course, I talk about this almost every time with these nutrition talks, is the more fruits and vegetables you have, 5 to 9 servings, the more nutrients you're going to get along with that fiber. All right. Let's talk about some of the more processed carbs. Those tend to be more refined, our cookies, cakes, we can have really tasty carbs that can be lower in carb. So you have that option. I'm thinking of like a tortilla, that kind of thing. You can have a low carb option in that still has some fiber intact. So it's possible to keep those carbs on a little bit lower end, but again, you want to try to keep more fiber intact with those carbohydrate intakes as much as you can, right? Something I want to say, the carbs, the other thing to keep in mind with carbs is, I'll hear often, I'll say, well, apples are a good source. And people will say, oh, well, they have so much sugar. Okay, well, it's naturally occurring sugar. It's not like added sugars. A lot of products that we have added sugars. You want to avoid the added sugars. If it's naturally occurring, such in fruit juice or the fruit, or in dairy, there's lactose, fructose, that kind of thing. That's a little better for your body than having additional added sugars to a product. Okay, so look for that on the label. It may even say added sugars, or in the label it may say sugars. You'll see the sugar content. I want to say 5 grams is about a teaspoon of sugar. I could be wrong on that, but I'll have to look that up. But anyway, look to see if it's, you can look in the ingredient label also if it says sugar or, you know, other sources of sugar that's in the ingredient versus naturally occurring, such as maltose. Let's see, I'm trying to think here, what are other sources of, my mind is slipped on what other sources of sugar are added in products. But anyway, just look in that label and in the ingredients. You want the first line on that ingredient, whatever you're eating, such as the fruit juice or whatever. All right. So carbohydrates, you know, again, it kind of all depends on how active you are and how many you need. But we do need carbohydrates. We need carbohydrates for energy. We also need it for our brain and red blood cells. All right. Let's move on. One thing, we've seen this cyclic change of diets through the years. So back in the 80s, 90s, it was low fat, high carbohydrate diet. Then it kind of did a 360. Well, it kind of went more to moderate fat, moderate protein, moderate carb. And now it's almost done a 360 of high fat, low carb. So it's changed, and what you'll see is when it used to be high carb, low fat, they would add additional sugar in place of the fat to make it a tasty product. So be careful with that. Same thing with the high fat, low carb. They'll add things to make it more tasty. So we kind of want to get away from that flux of foods. What I say is try to eat it in more the man-made form, not the processed form. Do you have a preferred brand or kinds of bread types that you like best? Well, look for 100% whole wheat. Whole grain is great too. But what's more important, and then Dave's Killer bread, that's pretty hearty. But I would look at how many grams of fiber is in that label to the amount of calories. So again, 3 grams of fiber per 100 calories is kind of a rule of thumb. So that's what I would look on your bread source. Some of the breads are pretty processed, but they've added fiber back in just so it's a smoother texture, because some people don't like the heartiness of bread. So hopefully that helps answer that question, all right? So let's kind of move on, because fat has been reborn. It used to be the bad guy. Now carbs are the bad guy, which they shouldn't be, but they kind of get that bad name. But fats, there are various types of fats, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about unsaturated fats, and we're going to talk about saturated fats. But those also break down into different parts. So fats have a certain role in our body. They carry fat-soluble vitamins, and they also cushion our organs. We need a certain amount of fat to do some of the processes our body needs. We don't need a lot of fat, okay? Excess fat gets stored just like excess carbs or excess protein as well. So you need a certain amount. There is a popular diet out there. I'm not going to say what it is, but it's very high fat and very low carb, and people lose weight quickly on that. And people love that because they want to lose weight quickly, and they want to see results faster. However, I caution you on that, because oftentimes when you lose weight quickly like that, you tend to lose a little bit of muscle tissue. You lose a lot of water weight, because when you drop out carbohydrates, you also lose some water weight. Carbohydrates tend to store water in the muscle. That's a good thing. That's how they're utilized. So when you go on a high-fat, low-carb, you lose weight quickly. You lose a lot of water weight as well. You tend to lose some muscle tissue in the process. It's very tough to sustain a high-fat, low-carb diet for long periods of time. So that's the other downfall. The certain types of fat that you use is where the caution comes in. High-fat diets tend to be linked to high or higher rates of heart disease. However, the types of fat that you eat is even more so. So unsaturated fats tend to help lower heart disease or not impacted as much as saturated fat. Saturated fat comes from mainly animal products. It also comes from like coconut oil as well. That's a higher saturated fat. But most saturated fat is solid at room temperature, and it comes from animal products. There's also saturated fats that are called trans fats. Those are more man-produced, but they're also hydrogenated. So they're your margarines, all right? Saturated fats are, beef and pork fat, butter, high-fat dairies, again, mostly animal products, and then, lard, that kind of thing. And then trans fats are your margarines or they're usually the fats that you find in cookies and cakes and your pastries because they have a good, they have a palatability in those products that make it taste better, all right, or taste better on your tongue. So be careful with the trans fats. The FDA has ruled that they have to be labeled trans fats. Trans fats are even more impactful on heart disease. They tend to raise your bad cholesterol, your LDL, and they tend to suppress your HDL, your high density lipoproteins, which are your good cholesterol. So just keep in mind trans fats, you want to try to get those out. Find a margarine that's made with a better type oil, such as olive oil, that kind of thing, okay? The more liquid, the better. Then we'd have unsaturated fats. Those tend to be plant-based, and they also break down to monounsaturated and polyunsaturated. I don't want to get too technical, but there is a little bit of difference. But monounsaturated tend to help lower heart disease. So olive oil, canola oil. Sorry, I can't speak tonight. Those are just some typical brands of oil that you can use. Corn oil is a polyunsaturated, and so that's okay to use, but honestly, if you're going to use an oil, use olive oil for cooking. My suggestion with fat in general is eat it in its original form. So nuts, seeds, grains, those kind of things are going to have your essential oils in them. Also salmon, herring, various fishes, those are going to have your good fats in them as well. So the closer you can keep to the original form, the more bang for your buck you're going to get. You're going to get other nutrients along with it, all right? The other thing I want to say about trans fats is trans fats are in a lot of our favorite foods, French fries, donuts, cookies, pies, that kind of thing. And microwave popcorn. Is it okay to have those once in a while? Absolutely. But try to be limited and try to read the label and get away from those trans fats as much as you can. All right? Let's see. Another question I hear is, how much fat do I need? Again, that's kind of going to depend on your personal differences, your male, female, how much lean body tissue you have, how active you are you on a weight loss scheme, So that all comes into play. American Heart Association recommends 30% or less. They suggest 10% or less from saturated fat, okay? The American Dietetic Association also 30% or less. kind of depending on if you're on weight loss, it could be 20 to 25% of your calories from fat. Are you going to try to figure all that out? Who knows, but that's just kind of a general. If you're somebody that keeps MyFitnessPal or takes a look at your calories and that, you can kind of figure it out that way. If you need help with that, I highly recommend talking to a registered dietitian that can get you on the right program based on what your needs are and what your goals are. It gets really confusing with all the information that's put out on the internet about, what kind of fats to have and, what kind of diets to do. And, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Should you take a fat supplement? In my suggestion, no, not unless a diet or a doctor has recommended it, like fish oil tablets for whatever reason, for your heart. But that should be, based on your doctor's suggestion. Again, my suggestion as a dietitian, get it from the original form. Your nuts, your seeds, your grains, your very lean meats, your fishes. You're going to get plenty of fats in those. Okay. Let's see. All right. Not really seeing much more. Is there questions out there that I haven't covered, or you're wondering about fat? Anybody? So I didn't really talk about omega-3s and omega-6s. That's the other kind of buzzword out there. Omega-3s, again, they're going to be in your fish, your salmon, your herring, sardines, trout. If you're vegan, though, it's going to come more from your flax seeds, chia, walnuts, soybeans. They're not as active as form, but you still can get your omegas that way, your omega-3s. Omega-6s, omega-3s tend to help decrease inflammation in the body, and omega-6s tend to counteract that, but we also get some good things from omega-6s as well. A lot of omega-6s have omega-3s as well. I have a question. Is a low-fat, low-calorie, and moderately low-carb diet okay? It kind of depends on how low a calorie we're talking, and probably the most important thing is that you're getting the fuel for your body that your body needs just to work your basal metabolism. Most women need about 1,200 calories a day, unless you're absolutely sedentary. And then the only problem when you drop your calories lower than that, you don't quite get enough of your vitamins and minerals to cover what your body needs. So you can run into that problem. But moderately low carbs, absolutely. You want at least 90 to 100 grams of carbs, 120 grams of carbs per day to fuel your brain and red blood cells. But yeah, so a low fat, low calorie, moderately low carb diet, absolutely. But again, be cautious with that calorie level because you can run into trouble not getting enough nutrients if it's too low of calories. All right. Any other questions out there? So do I hear you saying we should get most of our carbs from veggies and fruit rather than breads? Where should we see? Oh gosh, if I push this, I hope I don't lose anything. Where should we place our focus? Good question. So this is from Lynn. Yes, absolutely. I would say your fruits and vegetables should be your main focus in your meal planning as, part of your carbs. But also whole grain breads you know, other whole grains, they're gonna provide some bulking fiber, you know, oats and that kind of thing. They can provide bulking. So I didn't really get into our fiber type. My dog is jumping around by the cord, so if this goes down, it's the dog's fault. She's trying to get a fly that's in the office. And anyhow, but your fiber types, you have soluble and insoluble fiber. Sorry, lost my train. Molly, out. She's growling at a fly in here. I'm so sorry, you guys. But you have insoluble and soluble fibers. So insoluble are things like oats. That has a better fiber base for lowering cholesterol in your blood. And then your insoluble fiber is your bulking agent in your colon, you know, so helping you go to the bathroom, okay? Both types are important. So you're gonna get some from your fruits and vegetables, but also you're gonna get some from your whole grains. So balancing out those, again, focus on your fruits and vegetables first, and then add the extra other type of carbs into your diet to get the best balanced, all right? I know my dog is jumping around and she's scaring me because she's about ready to land on the cord. Anyway, I hope that answered your question. Any other questions out there? We have a few more minutes. I know I talked a lot. I kind of talk in circles, and I'm sorry about that. I'm still not quite used to this, looking at myself talking in a camera. All right. I don't see any more questions. Again, if you guys have a topic out there you would like me to cover, I'm always up for ideas. I have to usually ask people what they want to hear. And you can always let me know on my or not my website, but email me at Tammi, Tammi @WRAC.org. Even if you have a question, please email me and I can answer it, or I'll find the answer for you. All right. Okay, guys, I don't see any more questions. I hope you got some information, and I will see you next time. Take care.